All right, it's your brother Asare back with another one. Um, this is one that I kind of been talking about for a minute. We're gonna go back into the ancient world um a little bit. We've been, you know, kind of like on a world tour. Egypt, your Arabia, we've been talking about the Pelagians and Greece and everything like this. But today we're gonna take it to the house. I mean, um, we're gonna come to Southern Southern America, Southern United States, North America, or what have you, or whatever. And we're gonna talk about some of the tribes and some of the history of the Southern United States today. You see what I'm saying? Um, the book I'm gonna be quoting from and kind of referencing out of. I'm gonna just kind of get into a little section or whatever kind of goes into the origin of the Guale. Um, it's gonna be this book here. This is this is the Guale Origins book for 2024. It's a series. Uh, it's written by the brother. I don't know if we got a picture of the brother here. The brother Lanier Davis. See what I'm saying? Young brother. Pin this down. The young brother is, he's in contact with a lot of the tribal elders of the um, Yamassee, what have you, or whatever. I really kind of need to get the brother on and kind of ask him a couple, questions and kind of really just interview him. Really, some of the information he has, a lot of the oral history. Some of this um, goes into the oral history of the Yamassee, the Guale, and all that. Um, yeah, let's kind of get into it. Um, okay, so the birth of Guale, right, is the first installment in the Guale Origins series, meticulously tracing the history and heritage of the Guale people from 50,000 years ago to present day. This compelling narrative dives deep into the origins, shedding light on their journey, culture, and the profound connection they maintain with their ancestral lands. All right. Book two, Humanity's Flame, is an in-depth exploration of the clan, social, and town systems of the Guale, providing a detailed look at their communities with structured and governed. Uh, Book three, Mothers of the Ancient, focuses on the vital role of women and mothers in Guale society, shedding light on their influence in spiritual, social, and cultural leadership. Book four, Who You Are, not what you accept, the examination of the disenfranchisement experienced by indigenous Southeast Americans, exploring how identity is shaped by resistance and resilience against oppression. So we're gonna get into this a little bit now. Uh, I'm not gonna, you know, obviously read this whole thing, but it's gonna be a section out of the first part. You see what I'm saying? As you can see, this is a whole series that the brothers kind of putting together, or whatever. It goes into the culture, the clan system, the whole nine. We're not really gonna get into that. We're just kind of gonna take a dive into who these people are and what's this 50,000 year tenure that we're talking about in America. Okay, so let's see here. The ancient ones, historically known as Guale, existed on this land. He says this land he's talking about Turtle Island, North America, what he's talking about, on this land for at least 50,000 years. Today, the Topper site is just one site that conceals these secrets. Lead anthropologist Dr. Albert Goodyear currently has a display of pre-Clovis artifacts held at USC Southheach at the site. Dr. Goodyear and his team found charcoal and burned plant remains and indications of fire used by the ancient Americans. Radiocarbon dating suggested these materials are 20,000 years old, pushing back the timeline of human presence in the Americas, according to other scientific um, reports. In addition, there are deeper layers at the site which produce small stone artifacts that researchers date as far back as 50,000 years minimal. This pre-Clovis settlement predates the migration from Asia across the Bering Strait by 20 to 30,000 years. It also predated the out of Africa theory, which was recently changed to 60 to 70,000 years ago. The migrating Clovis people became the Algic Algonquin groups as told in the Walum Olum. The Walum Olum explains the migrations of these groups from the original home in Asia, Turtle Island, to understand the ancients that birthed Guale. We must attempt to understand their daily lives, our ancient ones. He's talking about their diets and everything like that. And he's talking about, he gets a little bit further in here. He talks about how before AD 1000, the coastal people had little to no contact with maize. He's talking about what they ate and everything like that. How they were talking about how the Mississippians brought the maize in and everything like that from Mexico. Let's see here. Maize is a carbohydrate with significant amounts of sugar. Over time, the overconsumption of maize causes acid erosion of the enamel. Late prehistoric Guale populations display indications of iron deficiency along with anemia owing to the addition of maize in their diet. So he's talking about before 1000 AD, they didn't even they didn't eat um, corn like that. One is able to judge age, sex, and even the people encountering a famine. Archaeology of prehistoric Guale, there is a story which we share. The maize woman. A famine was ended by a woman with corn on her toe. This only confirms that it was a crop received through trade. Late Archaic period dugout boats are found in Guale territory with dates over 4,000 years in age. Our ancestors used cedar, pine, redwood, oak. He's talking about what they made their boats out of and stuff like that. So he's talking about artifacts that go back 4,000 years. He's talking about they date the Guale's presence in America as far as 50,000 years. They go back 50,000 years. Um, okay, late archaic period dugout boats are figured in Guale territory, which date over 4,000 years in age. Our ancestors used cedar, pine, redwood, and oak to make larger boats. When trips were across large bodies, they were often attached. Cowie, the ancestor of the Panthera, Anthrax, and Leo, the mother of the rhinoceros, originated here. So he's talking about the species that preceded certain other species and stuff like that. Um, as far as the rhinoceros, the panther, the lion, and stuff like that, because you have the American lion and different animals like that. Uh, the Mira Conics migrated from North America 100,000 years ago across the Bering Strait and eventually became the cheetah in present-day Africa. The National Park Services currently house skeletons of the ancient predator, giant sloth, saber-tooth tigers, and many species of exotic, now extinct animals roam the lands. George William Guest found mammoth bones and artifacts eroding from a bed of Silver River. Florida was a lush tropical paradise even during the stages of North America's ice ages. Indigenous Americans cohabitated with these animals is a topic rarely publicly discussed. So he's basically saying they cohabitated with the animals and stuff like that, possibly even, maybe even domesticating some of them, however it may go. Um, let's see here. The saber tooth was no stranger to the original people, and neither was Altamaha. Anthropologist Jesse Halligan was breathtaking when she uncovered a knife with sharp edges on both sides that is used for cutting as well as other tools next to mastodon bones. Okay, we're gonna get to the punchline in a minute. She has previously thought humans migrated into the land 13,000 years prior. However, this pushed the dates back at least 1,500 years. Skeletons near Topper at Salcahatchee and Hilton Head Island are classified as Guale, African Guale, and Guale Yamassee, right? Okay, further studying, because remember, I don't know, previous videos we talked about that. In studying the history of, let's say, like certain tribes in North America and stuff like that, based on what they call themselves, what the Europeans called them, what other tribes called them, you might have like 5 or 6 different names trying to trace the history of one particular tribe and stuff like that. So that's Guale was another name, or another, in my research before reading this material. Guale, Miccosukee. All those names correlate with Yamassee. You see what I'm saying? When I would do research on the Yamassee tribe out of South Carolina. Um, okay, so further studying will have to be conducted to identify them as being the oldest known Americans. Okay, here we go. Guale is Spanish for the island named by the French who encountered a Coquique mayor named Ode by their translation. It eventually became the name of all Georgia. Guale was the name of all Georgia, right? Names used to identify us are Ode, that's French, Guale, that's Spanish, Gullah, that's English, Tahoe Galui, Tagale, Ta Taligas, or Lenape, Ogeechee, which is Creek, uh, Sowanak, Shawnee, Zabana, Savannah, Arawak, uh, Yapaha, Tamakua, Kata, Catawba, uh, Tasayaha, uh, Muspa, Ugaja, Ubaha, Mokama, Ugala, Spanish mistranslation, Yucha, misnomer, Eufaula, Whaley, Appalachie, Gullah Geechee, that's English. Popular towns of Guale are Asopo, Espoji, Chetufa, Aluste, uh, Colapala, Guale, Otax, Posache, Tolomato. He lists down to Savannah, Ogeechee. He lists a lot of different names. I mean, I'm not. You have to purchase the brother book to really kind of get into all the names and all the meticulous detail that he kind of goes into. But he lists a lot of names and stuff like that that are synonymous, whether with towns or other tribes that are synonymous with um, the Guale. Let's see here. The Guale language is a classification that does not exist, meaning the ancient ones would not have used such terms. Document of its recording are held in Archivo General de Indias in Seville, Spain. Guale baptisms, mission documents, and prayers were transcribed by the friars. In the 20th century, a congress of scholars debated in the Guale original if the Guale original language was Muskogean or Creek. John Swanton, who had no knowledge of the Guale and Timucua languages, improperly classified them as Muskogean. All right, in the misconnection of Guale and Yamassee with Muskogean. All right. Let's see here. The misconnection, the target audience was readers of George Bardwell's 1991 title, The Muskogean Connection of Guale and Yamassee, where he only used Creek words, further miseducating the masses. One word they use is Holata, leader. This word was adapted by Mokama, Choctaw, and Muskogee speakers from Appalachia. Trade jargon loanwords he took as a form of a mother language. This caused confusion amongst many who previously thought the Muskogee were the elders of the Southeast. The language of Guale and its dialects were spoken by 40 plus towns. There are also languages which have taken loanwords from the Guale Casabo and applied in Timucuan. So Yaha and Catawaba. The Guale use symbols to communicate messages, though this is not acknowledged as a written language. The Guale have not been in contact with new interior people, which became and or were originally Yumusi, long enough to speak their original language. Atik Hata brought maize before BC 800, but this wasn't a major crop until 1000 BC, 1000 AD. Having a complex society, here are some places the Georgia coastal prehistoric foragers are from. South Newground Mound, Cunningham Mound, um, McLeod Mound, Seaside Mound 1, Seaside Mound 2, Evelyn Plantation Airport Site, Deptford Site, Cannons Point Site. He lists several mounds all throughout Georgia. Low Mound at Shell Bluff, Townsend Mound. He lists a bunch of mounds, Redbird Mound, and just like we talked about in here, we get into the first Americans were African. We get into that, and it talks about the difference between the red Native American and the mound builders. You see what I'm saying? So we get into that. According to the anthropologist, Deptford culture dates back, let's see here, BC 800. This is based on wooden paddles, ceremonial items, pottery, and mounds, burial, and deposits. Mastering the waterways, the cultural spread from the savannah to the present-day Louisiana. Its influence is seen in Ohio and the Mississippi, reaching towns along the Gulf of Mexico. Birth from the southeastern woodland culture. Deptford birthed the Swift Creek culture, which gave us the greatness like Kolomoki and Okamogi. The maps will show the migration from the coast to the interior before the interior to the coast. Um, Yabaha culture moving into the uh, Chattahoochee and Tallapoosa regions provided nations with new food sources and traditions, unifying the greatness of the East, the West, and those to the north and northwest of them. Let's see. According to research, this began and lasted more than a millennia, 200 BC to 1000 AD. Together, they constructed larger mound complexes and began to share traditions and ceremonies. Stamp, pottery, stone, jewelry, sugar, tobacco, and copper objects were trade items. And Tahogale, the ancient Guale, would begin to unite with the ancestors of Tsoyaha, Lenape, Yumusi, Timucua, Arawak, Muspa or Muskogee, Choctaw, Spanish, French, and Natchez. In order to tell Guale origins, we must speak on the migration mentioned above during the Mississippi period, 800 AD to 1600 AD. In the Ohio Valley, the Taguale, known as the Tahagaliwi, were invaded by the Lenape and Mingwe. As told in the Walum Olum, they were promised land in the east by the Creator, asking to settle. Tiligas denied the request while allowing them to pass through. The original crossers became known as Blackfoot, Arapaho, and Cheyenne. Alerted by the numbers of immigrants, the Tessalagi attacked the strange people, sending them back across the Mississippi. Our ancestor Tahaguale um, state the invaders were a warlike people. In fact, the Lenape attempted to take all lands to the east, which were fortified, constructed, and full of vegetation. Their objective was met with a force they hadn't encountered since entering and taking the western part of the Americas. These Lenape retreated to the Rocky Mountains. Their elders, along with the Mingwe, held a war council. Scouts were sent south of the Mississippi to families from the El Mapes area of Rocky Mountains in Mexico. Here they became trading partners, collectively deciding on an alliance to achieve their goals. The Lenape would destroy mounds and cities of the valley in order to cause the major battle. The Confederate people, after a 100-year war, divided the Ohio Valley amongst each other. As they celebrated, the Brothers of the Pipe was founded, people of one fire, now known as Algonquin and Iroquois. They later competed for complete control of the region, making efforts far into the lands of the southern Sawa, Sa, Sa, Sawokli or Savannah. Uh, the remaining Taliga rushed down the Mississippi. Others fled to the southeast coast, while a special group stayed to become known as the Tessalagi. As history would tell it, the original mound builders were no more. The original mound builders were no more. The Walum Olum says that the Tahogalui were Yuchi, and suggesting a later Cherokee people. 200 years after the Mississippian invasion, there was a civil war in the land of the people of Itz, Mopan, Kichi, Tizital, Acatec, and other Mayans. So basically he's saying like, okay, we'll keep going. He's gonna say basically what he's saying. Around the same time, small band of what would become the Aztec Empire, ex-Khan Tentoluyan, began to encroach the area to Mayan to Mayan north. The Olmec and Maya offspring migrated AD 900 to AD 1350 out of Mexico through the White Path, stopping in many places. A new confederation was established as the incorporated other along the Gulf Coast. By sea bands traveled to Cuba and other islands, escaping death. Many clans settled Crystal River in Ocala, Florida, furthering their reach. Small groups settled interior lands, arriving at Chattahoochee, Tennessee, because um, all of these places are native names. Tennessee, Tallahassee, Apalachicola. All these places those are native names. Um, and other towns in the Ohio Valley, these Mayan people were known as Suki, known today as Miccosukee. Okay, in 1519, the Aztec Empire, uh, Montezuma, uh, and their Muspa Muskogee allies lost a grave war to the Spanish garrison and Cortez. The Obsidian was no match for the guns, armor, and aggression of Cortez's feeble army. His sons were kidnapped and taken as a treasure to parade around in Europe. In the coming years, 1519 to 1540, the Maspa would find nothing good in the land retreating east. We are taught this was due to an eruption of the navel. Advancing in many waves, the Muspa ransacked the tribes of the east through the south, where first they contacted the Mobilians, uh, immigrating in stages. First Wind, the Bear, the Panther, all today are under the Muskogee banner. Chickasaw, Coweta, Coshita, the Confederate people conquered a weak, a weakened Oconee, Flint, Little and Great Ogeechee, Chattahoochee, Savannah, Coosa, Tallapoosa, and Okmulgee towns. The original inhabitants would seek asylum, becoming Muskogee. Again in retreat, tribal forces returned to their ancestral lands on the East Coast in present-day Carolina, Florida, and Georgia. The Bahamas, Cuba, and the West Indies, once places of refuge, but what had become of them? The familiar lands were not so familiar anymore. They were invaded. Let's see here. And he's basically talking about when the Spanish came in, and it's interesting as you can see how he's relating your Algonquins and all these tribes, um are these tribes that are related to the Guale, how how he's contrasting them with the Olmecs and stuff like that. He's talking about how when they came out of Mexico, he's relating them to the remnants of the Mayans. He's talking about like, oh man, where did the Mayans go or whatever case may be. He's saying that these individuals are remnants of the Mayans. These are the tribes that are remnants of the Mayans. They just dispersed. So yeah, so I'm gonna go into the first Americans were Africans real quick. Um, this is page 156. It's a book by Dr. David Imhotep. The revised edition. The first Americans were African. We did another piece with um involving material from this book. I think it's a piece called "Been Around the World." It's talking about the Twa. You see what I'm saying? Um, let's see here. This is page 156, where the first Mayans Olmecs, because we just read a piece out of there, and he was basically talking about how a lot of how your tribes, they talk about where did the Mayans go and everything like that. And he's basically talking about they just moved north. The Guale is the remnants of the Mayans. A lot of your tribes of North America descend from the Mayans, the Mayans and the Olmecs and stuff like that. Your Yamassee and all them, and all the tribes associated with them that he named, that are in the southeast, they descended from. You see what I'm saying? Your Mayans, they spread out across the Caribbean islands and stuff like that, basically based on the oral history that the brother lays down right there. So that's what happened to the Mayans. So and there are other stories about how they went further to other places and in Southeast Asia and stuff like that. There's stories about that, but based on the oral history that the brother lays down in that book or whatever case may be, they're spread throughout the Southeast United States or whatever case may be. Okay, so were the first Mayans Olmecs? Okay, so but far beyond pictures of black Mayans on vases, there are the tremendous Bonampak murals, which can be found in the Temple of the Murals in the Mexican state of Chiapas. They are seen in a three-room small temple on a pyramid. These marvelously colored pictures are portrayed about two-thirds of actual life size of an average man. The majority of the Mayans portrayed in room one were painted with from chocolate to black by the first Mayans, located within the deep tropical rainforests of Chiapas, Mexico. The ancient Maya site of Bonampak is home to the most complete and important mural program of the ancient Americas. These three murals first came to modern attention in 1946 when Lekandon Maya, who lived in the region, showed photographers Giles Healy, Yale 24, what they had not previously shown any outsiders: a small temple whose three-room house painting that covers all surfaces. In the end, Jim Budd, a writer who does not see color, the Herald Mexico, uh, who does not see color, for the Herald Mexico, a daily newspaper published in Mexico City, calls the Bonampak mural a well-deserved Sistine Chapel of the Americas. On the cover of this book, see for yourself what the first Mayans were telling the world. The first civilization under white fella MD Cole makes the case even clearer. The Olmec influence. Okay, so listen to this. The Olmec influence is the key to a study of the pyramids in Mesoamerica. It is generally accepted that all later civilizations in Mesoamerica ultimately rest on an Olmec base. Indeed, Cole goes further and says that the Olmecs, now peep this, the Olmecs not only influenced the Maya, but they were the early Maya. So there's no the Olmecs and the Maya were the same people at some point. Okay, so that impartial statement by Cole should not be surprising. So it should now be very clear to the reader that there was a connection between the Maya and the Olmecs. There is supported by the evidence from the pre-classical Maya site of Olmec jaguar pyramids and inscriptions. The Olmecs taught the Maya architecture and all related sciences. I can't remember the source, but they found universities that the Olmecs used to teach the Maya. You see what I'm saying? Um, the Olmec taught the Maya architecture and all related sciences. Moreover, throughout Maya history, depicted in its monuments and art, we see the presence of Africans. The figurines found at the site of Ocas illustrates quite clearly and in color the earliest Mayans were Africans. All right, the earliest Mayans were Africans. He says that they were a ceramic type at Ocas that were used by other African communities in Mexico between 155 and 850 BC. The presence of Africans at early Maya sites may explain the presence of African words, e.g., Manding appearing in Mayan languages. Because I know the brother Clyde Winters, Dr. Clyde Winters, I know he's laid that down quite some time ago that the Olmec language is related to Manding languages. So it would only make sense that the Maya language would be related to Manding languages as well. So okay, I'm just gonna get into, let's see, this is page 51 of this same, this is an image of that mural he was talking about earlier. He's showing the black Maya and everything like that. Um, okay, earlier in the brother Lanier Davis's book, he was referencing the Algonquin as being still related to this same thread. Um, Earlier, when we read this book in Twa number 2, been around the world, we are talking about how there are, for lack of a better way of putting it, for lack just for the sake of this conversation, pygmies all over the planet. Pretty much everywhere you go, there or many places that you go, you'll find an indigenous population of small people or whatever case may be. We talked about on a previous video when we went into the book by Jean Pierre Hallett, Pygmy Katabu. We talked about even in Africa, the pygmies and the tribes associated with the pygmies or the Hottentots, the Bushmen, um, and all tribes associated with those small stature people, they are the original Africans. Those are the indigenous Africans. Everybody else, according to them, came from somewhere else. And when we're talking about they came from somewhere else, when we get in this account from the pygmies in Africa, we're talking about like this is 12,000 BC and on back, or whatever case may be. So when we say they came from somewhere else, or whatever case may be, that could account for migrations. Um, let's say 8,000 BC, something like that, or whatever case may be. Um, it's it's I think it's a book, Unknown Arabians. You see what I'm saying? What the author breaks that down, or whatever case may be, about how it's been continuous migrations from Arabia into Africa. And before I even heard about that book or whatever, I was getting it out of Jean Pierre Hallett, Pygmy Katabu, and he was talking about how the pygmies said the other Africans come from somewhere else. We talking about the Sabians and stuff like that. They come from the southern tip of Arabia and everything like that. This how Phoenicians don't call themselves Phoenicians. Phoenicians call themselves Ethiopians. How it was a collection of civilizations at a certain period of time, and that influence was so dominant or whatever. It's a whole phase of Egyptian civilization that's referred to as Sabian, right? Or whatever case may be. So those are individuals out of Arabia. The original Africans are the small people, the pygmy people or whatever. And these people migrated all over the planet or whatever case may be. And that was tied into your Algonquins as far as the people who migrated over to America and um, prior to your whole Bering Strait land bridge whole situation or whatever case may be. So let's see. This is page 51 out of the first Americans were African. Okay, so make sure I'm not. Okay, where were the Algonquins located? The Algonquin family, adopted from the name Algonquin, a linguistic stock which formerly occupied a more extended area than any other in North America. This territory reached from the east shore of Newfoundland to the Rocky Mountains. The eastern tribes from Maine to Carolina. The Algonquin are also known as the Lenape. I think he was referencing that a little bit earlier. The Algonquin, however, should not be referred to as Lenape until 2600 BC, when the Mongolian Huang people entered the Americas from Asia, the mixed blood with the Proto-American Algonquin. Before the Algonquin began to mix with the Mongolian Huang people, the Algonquin were Proto-American Africans. Once they mixed, they were called Lenape. So that's the distinction between the Lenape and the straight up Algonquin, or as Gonzalez Jose refers 2005 refers to them, Amerids. We are using data from the Walam Olum's date of entry into the Americas as 2600 BC instead of using uh, Powell's date of after 3000 BC, out of the respect for traditions of the ancient ones. According to the Walam Olum, when the Mongolian Huang Nu entered the Americas, fighting and mixing their blood with the Proto-Americans after 2600 BC. They slowly migrated and eventually arrived in Delaware on the East Coast in 1396 AD. By the time the Mongolian Huang Nu reached Delaware, they had been mixing their blood for 1,204 years. This point is made so the reader will not be confused and understand the following. When the Wallam Olum tells of a war in the Midwest between the Algonquin and the Mound builders, it must be understood that there are not the same people fighting each other. Also, the first Mound builders were from Africa, just as the first Algonquin originally were before they mixed. Because when he talks about the Algonquin, he's talking about he's talking about an iteration of the Twa. When he talks about Paleo Americans, Paleolithic Americans, he's just talking about people before the Holocene. That don't necessarily mean they cavemen or nothing like that, because when you get into like research on the various different civilizations that nobody talks about. Let's say like Cahokia, you know, what I'm saying your different Native American confederacies that existed all over the east, all up and down the East Coast and everything like that. It's not really um, talked about. Okay, so the mounds in the United States are usually found near rivers. In the Ohio River Valley, 10,000 mounds have been discovered. In the north, the mound zone begins in western New York and extended along the southern shore of Lake Erie into what is now Michigan, Wisconsin, and on to the states of Iowa and Nebraska. In the southern United States, the mounds lined the Gulf of Mexico from Florida to eastern Texas and extended up through the Carolinas and across the state of Oklahoma. The mounds of the mound builders were probably replicas of Negro forts in Africa. That this tendency to build forts and stockades proceeded from the Antilles, whence the Arawaks had come in the beginning of the 16th century. Is proved by the presence of similar works in Cuba. These are found in the most abandoned and least explored parts of the island, and there can be little doubt that there were locations of fugitive Negroes and Indian stockades, precisely such as were in use in Africa. The results indicate that the African and the American mounds have statues built in the same style. With many of the same features. They support Weiner's theory that the Mande speaking people built some of the Mississippian mounds. We find many similarities between the art styles of the inhabitants of the mounds found in the area that encompass ancient Mali and the mounds built in the United States and South America. Okay, so just wanted to kind of get into that. Just I thought that was an interesting piece, kind of connecting the a lot of the tribes in the southeastern United States um, with the Olmec and the Maya, connecting your Algonquins with the Olmec and the Maya, and a lot of um, your dominant tribes in the southeast, specifically the Guale and all its iterations and everything like that. In this long history, connecting that to the Olmec, I thought that was a yeah, interesting piece. Um, but yeah, just gonna kind of that's gonna kind of be it for that one. That's gonna be the first of probably a few pieces on ancient America and everything like that, because it's other little facets and everything like that. But I just wanted to kind of like um touch on that book. Probably try to get bro on if I can have a dialogue with bro you know brother the brother Lanier Davis, see if we can get some dialogue, some jewels that he got, some maybe some interesting oral history the brother might have came across. So stay tuned. Appreciate y'all checking me out. Peace and blessings, man.